just so that you are aware, to have any motion voted on at a congregational meeting in these days, you need 20 people. It is no longer a majority or a 50% or anything like that. It's simply 20 people. Next item, I personally would like to thank all of council this year. It's been a hard year. People have worked really hard. Lots of people have had to help with things that are not really normally their responsibility, but everybody has been wonderful in jumping in to help anywhere just to keep things running. It's been hard, I know, on a lot of people who are working multiple jobs, looking after kids and all of that, but we are very, very grateful. It's been a wonderful council and a pleasure to work with you all. I'd also like to acknowledge several members who have retired during the year or are retiring at the end of the year. Jeff Cargus stepped down as secretary, Sue McDonald for property, Kate LaBelle, outreach, David Fan, treasurer, and Frank O'Byrne from Horseshoe Falls region. So thank you very much to all of you. As I say, it's very much appreciated. I will go on to read the council executive for 2021, and this will be published in the minutes, and it is in the annual report. So Kent Palmer takes over as chair of council. Candace Allen continues as secretary, Darren Panett as finance chair. For standing committees, Harold Deviney. Harold has so many hats, we can hardly list them. Chair of capital projects, the mission team, mental health and wellness, and then he throws in property on the side when they need help. Carolyn McNaught, nurturing care. Candace Allen, communication, as well as secretary. Finance committee, Darren Panett. Michelle Mosley as stewardship.
Judy, sorry. Your papers are right next to your microphone, and every time you move them. Yeah, thank you.
Should I start? Can you still, have you heard what I've said? Or
yes, we happen to hear it, just was interrupted sometimes.
And Kent Palmer for trustees. So I wish all of you well. I would also like at this time to point out, though, that we have quite a few vacant chair positions. The vice chair position, nominating committee, community and faith formation, M&P, property, and outreach. Now, again, all of these committees have been functioning without chairs for most of the year. And as I say, everybody has just gathered around to make sure that meetings still occur, that things get done, and it's been wonderful. But if anybody is willing to step up to head any of these committees, or if you can think of anyone or know anyone who you think might take on a role, please let me know, or let ministers know, or let Kent know. It's very difficult these times. I'm hoping that as we go into fall and we start to get back to normal again, that more people will be able to join in. Also, we need, lots of the teams are in need of members. Affirming in particular is in need of some new members. So again, please let me know if you can think of anyone. That's the key thing. I've been through the list of people. I have called various and assorted people, and so far we're not able to fill the positions, but if you have any ideas, please let me know. So I now, we need a motion to approve the council membership.
Okay, Gloria Francis, I move to approve the council.
A seconder?
Ron Sherman, I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? I think the motion has passed.
Yeah,
thank you. And thank you all. Now we need a motion to authorize council to continue its work to fill vacancies. Would someone?
Okay, Doug Francis here. I move that we authorize council to continue its work to fill vacancies.
Thank you. And the seconder?
Julianne, my mode, I second it.
Thank you so much. Any questions, any discussion about that?
Does that
No.
include figuring out how to clone Harold?
Yeah. I think we could clone a lot of people on this screen right
Yeah, I
now.
shouldn't just limit to Harold, but
I'm just looking at the pictures on the screen. Yeah, there's lots of people we would like cloned for sure. We'll add that, right? All in favor? And that motion has passed. Thank you. Now next, I turn it over to Pat Mason, who will just give you a brief update. Where is Pat? There she is. Unmute yourself. There.
Good morning. The Ministry and Personnel Committee is informing the congregation that council has approved a 2.2% increase in 2021 salaries for our lay staff, Catherine Arcand-Pinette, Jeannie Kuo, and Tracy Mitchell. This is consistent with the 2.2% mandated increase to ministerial staff in 2021.
Thank you, Pat. Now, I think at this point, the bulk of this meeting gets turned over to Darren. He's our star performer. So
can we
Darren,
have any comments? Can I add a comment on that?
of course.
Just for information, so everybody knows the inflation rate, official inflation rate for 2020 was around 0.7%.
The church mandates it based on the previous year.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
2020 it was 0.7%. So I'm just raising a comment that what the church is authorizing is fairly generous, I think. So that's my only comment. I'm not against it or anything. I just wanted to, for information, that everyone realize that it's fairly adequate compensation.
It's actually, no, it's a good point to bring up, Ron, because the fact is the church establishes in every year in June, they send out a note with the annual inflation rate for ministerial salaries. And it is based on the previous year. So it's not the 2020 inflation rate, it's 2019. If 2020 is 7.7%, according to the government, then next year they will mandate 0.7%. So the ministers are always a year behind. Any other comment, discussion, questions? No? Okay. Darren, unmute yourself and you're up.
Thanks, Judy. I would use the term star performer very loosely, by the way.
No.
I'm going to share my screen here. Sorry, 1 second. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my presentation, I guess, is in 3 sections. One is, we'll cover the 2020 financial results, and I'll make a motion to sort of approve those financial statements that relate to these results I'm presenting. The second piece is around reviewing the 2021 budget. I'll be making a motion to approve that. And then the third item is just sort of more information around what finances priorities will be for this year. And I'll just spend a couple minutes talking about those. So I can't really sort of see any, if anyone has any questions as I'm sort of sharing my screen. So what I'll do maybe is I'll talk through the key messages on each slide, and sort of when I'm done, I'll unshare my screen and I'll take questions if you have them. So first of all, it's just sort of like to start out by saying that you may recall last year at the AGM, we established an operating
deficit of $58,000. And that was really driven by the underlying premise of, 2020 is a transitional year for St. Paul's. We were coming out of, a year where we made lots of changes. And so we had, from a financial perspective, we had, a certain level of fixed expenses, but offering income was trending downwards. And so that was really behind a lot of the $58,000 deficit that we approved as part of last year's budget. And so if you look at sort of where we came in on a reported basis, if you look at the table below, next to the purple number 1, you'll see that we came in with a surplus of 139,000. So 2 things happened this year, obviously, that we didn't account for in that $58,000 budget was the very generous bequest from the estate of John McKay. So that was $211,000 that, of course, wasn't in our budget. And on the negative side of things, of course, COVID, the impact of COVID wasn't in our budget at all. And so I'll speak a little bit more about that in the next slide. So really, if you look at sort of that reported column, the bequest that we got from the McKay estate of 211,000 really sort of brought us into the black, essentially, in driving that $139,000 operating surplus. Given that, of course, that bequest is a one-time item, it's a special item, it's not normally part of our operations. Whenever I would sort of provide updates to council, I would exclude that so that we can sort of see how we're performing without the bequest. And so if you back out the 211,000 in income, and we also backed out $11,000 on expenses because we ended up donating a portion of that bequest to some charitable donations in the year. The net impact of that is $200,000. And so if you exclude that, next to the purple number 2, you see an operating deficit of $61,000. So really that is how I see it anyway, like our true operating result for the year. So the 61,000. And so you compare that to our $58,000 budget. And so, we were $2,000 unfavorable to our budget in the year. So I'll walk through sort of where we were off on our budget. And of course, a lot of the theme you'll understand is coming from COVID. So if you look at the table again and see the purple number 3 in the very top, where you see total income, offerings and rental income were very unfavorable. And a lot of that was because of COVID. We were closed for 9.5 months of the year. And so that definitely had an impact of about $90,000 on our income. Helping to offset that, obviously the big one there is the wage subsidy. So we ended up getting a $50,000 rebate or subsidy from the government to help sort of, recover some of the impact that we had from COVID. The other sort of large item there is on salaries. So we ended up paying a bit more salary, less salary than we expected. We made the difficult decision to sort of put a pause on cleaning expenses, for example. But really the largest driver behind that variability is we actually ended up being really conservative in our budget. And so we probably included more in our budget than we're going to incur. And so that drove a lot of the variability. So when you factor in the unfavorable income of $90,000, but factor in the subsidy and the lower salaries, we're kind of essentially like flat to budget for the year. The last point I'd sort of make is around the impact of COVID. So on the next slide, lots of numbers here. I'm not going to go through them all, but the underlying message here is that if you look at the total impact line, so the bolded line in the top table, as far as what I can estimate, COVID basically had an impact to the church of about $154,000. So you can see the big items up above, right? With the church being closed, we're not able to sort of generate those offerings as people aren't able to attend church. And of course, we weren't able to sort of realize the rental income as well.
And so, but mitigating that $154,000 were a number of items, including people were
Hey, Deborah, can you count how many people are on how many individual screens? And now some of us have, or two on each screen, but,
There are 35 screens.
oh, wow.
It
So I can
actually
only
says,
see,
it actually says, Frank, on your screen where it says participants, so there's a little number next to it. Might be too small, but it does say
oh, it's too
35.
small.
And
Round
I,
about- round
and I
about
think
40
that's
people.
and I think that's 39
Yeah.
with the people who have 2 people.
Right, thank you.
Sorry about that. My laptop actually wasn't plugged in and it was trying to reset. So apologize. So as I was saying, you know, total impact 154,000. There was some mitigating factors as I was being made fun of offline. You know, people were sending in offerings. We had the wage subsidy. As a council, we made some tough decisions around like pausing expenses. So like we paused our cleaning, as you can see there, for a while. We had to sort of cancel our like social media presence. You know, I had sort of in budget sort of an audit or like a financial review that we actually didn't do until this year. And so when you sort of factor in those mitigating factors, essentially like we were pretty much sort of, you know, flat. Like there was not really a lot of net impact there. So, you know, we we're kind of fortunate. Obviously the wage subsidy helped, but so that's kind of why, you know, despite experiencing and going through COVID, we weren't too far off of our operating budget for the year. So I'll pause there and you know, I'll take any questions anyone has on 2020.
You can make your motion and second it, and then we have questions.
Oh yeah, okay. I make a motion to approve the 2020 financial statements.
And then
A seconder.
Thea, I second that motion.
Thank you. Now discussion.
So
Discussion,
people
questions.
can raise their hands and the Zoom will actually keep track of who has raised their hand first, and then I will call upon you. So Tom Allen has his hand up.
I guess I have to unmute first. Darren, does the wage from the government, does that apply into 2021?
Yeah, we actually have an item in our 2021 budget for that. So you can see here, sort of the third last line in this table. We've got about 15,000 budgeted actually. So it's about like 2,300 per month. Obviously a lot less than this year, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Ron Shermett.
Yes. Hi, Darren. Pardon me. Are any of the wage subsidies, are they in the form of a grant, or are they, do we need to repay any or part of it?
No, it's not in the form of a grant, and we don't have to repay it. It's just you know, assistance given by the government to help not only churches but like many small and medium-sized businesses get through the impact of the pandemic.
Okay, Chris Lee.
Hi, can I ask you how were the centene offerings were calculated and different from the envelope, I think, last year?
Sorry, I didn't catch part of that. How is
How's the centene offering calculated different from the envelope income? I think envelope offering. I'm sorry. I think in the slide that was after this slide.
First,
Oh.
I chose 2 items.
Yes.
Centene
So
and-
how are they like distinguished or separated between last
Yeah,
income
so
impact and the mitigate?
yeah, that's a good question, Chris. So basically, like when we establish the budget every year, we actually break down what we think we're going to generate in offerings between like envelope offerings, loose offerings, and par. And so, so what I did for the envelope and loose offerings was I just basically included what we had in budget for those 2 items. And given that, you know, people weren't going to be able to attend church. This was basically lost income for us. And so I just ended up taking the budgeted numbers for those 2 lines. But we did end up receiving offerings to help offset that. So that's the sort of item you see below the mitigating factors heading, like the very first line. So helping to offset the impact up above is offerings that we ended up receiving anyway.
I see. So the Sentinel offering includes the PAR, or does it not include the PAR and just separately sent ones?
PAR is not included in this slide at all, just because PAR is not really impacted by COVID. Like the church is closed, but we're going to sort of realize PAR offerings anyway. So I excluded it from this view.
Thank you.
No problem.
Those are the only hands that were raised. Is there anybody here who has a question who who may not know how to do that?
If so, just unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah.
Hello, it's Doug Francis here. We hear a fair bit about wage subsidies and what the government is doing. I'm just wondering, was it complicated to get that money? That's a fair bit of money that we got from the government. I'm just wondering, was it a complicated procedure to get that money?
Actually, this was all Grace and Kent, so they helped manage this for the church. And so the calculation is basically like you take your, the revenue that you would have generated in the period, and then it's like they give you a percentage basically. And so Grace can probably speak to it better than I can, but we basically get a certain percentage of our lost income on that, and so Grace would basically submit a form every month, and then we get reimbursed pretty quickly. Actually, it didn't take too long for the government to process the reimbursement. It just took a while to sort of get the process started.
Okay.
I see Ron's hand up. Unmute yourself.
Yeah,
Oh,
I just had a question about the wage subsidy in September. It's showing a negative number.
Yeah, that I think we were overpaid basically. So you see the big catch up in July, right? Like that's really sort of catching us up from prior months. And then I think between July and August, we probably were paid too much. And so there's a bit of an adjustment in September.
Okay. Thanks, Darren.
Frank O'Byrne has his hand up.
Okay. I hope I'm not on mute. Just a question on the rentals. Is there any prospects on how we think the church can open up for not us, but for other people who are interested in using it?
Michelle should be able to speak to rentals. Michelle, are you still there? And unmute yourself if you are.
There we go. Sorry, it took me a minute to find it. At the moment, not too many of our regular users are banging on the doors. We do have some prospects for the summer from the YMCA, so that they can begin some programming. The Y is going to be used for a vaccination site through the fall, and so they've asked us for some parking. So there's a little bit going on there, not anywhere near what we're accustomed to, but every little bit helps.
I would just like to add that in the fall, 14 of our renters came back. At the peak, we were at 46 renters. I think that was the number for the year, the highest. So the moment they can get back in legally, they are coming back. It's a case of what color we are in.
It's going to take some time. In speaking with the YMCA, they tried to open in the fall and did to a limited amount, and had to close down again. And that's really hard for groups.
Yeah.
So they're waiting until everything is pretty much a sure thing, if you know what I mean. So they don't have to open and close again. And I think that's probably the same with a lot of people.
Well, the reason why I ask is I see that the renters must be still interested because that big storage bin for the air cadets is still there. So they must be still planning on using it, I guess.
Oh, yes, yeah, I'm sure they
Okay.
are.
They
It's
are
just-
paying us, they are paying us to store that there.
Yeah.
That was part
Okay.
of their contract, and we had a big contract with them.
Of course.
Okay, well, I know it's not a topic for today, but I'm not going back into any church for a while, but
Just as an aside, with respect to keeping the heat on or not in the gymnasium, I noticed that the schedule last week showed for this upcoming week, badminton was going to start on Monday and Friday. And I noticed now that the schedule has been changed and it's been removed. So people seem to be in and out. Michelle, you might speak to that.
Yeah, we did, as Judy said, we did have some people coming back, and yeah, everyone has their own set of guidelines that they have to go by, and then they fit within our set of guidelines. So I know we've had a few things going on, and which is, if you look at the budget, that's what you see. But we're just really operating on a day-to-day basis at this point. No one can commit at this point.
Just as an aside, it's very difficult as well to manage cleaning for that,
Yeah.
because when we have renters in, we must have a cleaner. So
Right.
we had stopped Roy completely. Then in the fall, when we were full up, we had somebody in every day. We brought him back full time. Then we stopped him again. Then we brought him in for 2 days and so on. So right now, we're trying to be respectful of his time and not change it every single week on him. So, but we have to manage depending on how many renters are in the building, which is in flux.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're generating about $2,500 a month right now in rental income. And so that's kind of what it's costing us to clean the
Yeah.
church. So we're kind of breaking even at this point. But
Yeah.
to the extent where, we drop below that $2,500 of rental income a month, we'd have to revisit, is it worthwhile keeping the cleaning service?
And incidentally, when speaking with the YMCA, that is one of the reasons that they're reluctant to reopen without a good sight line, because it costs them a lot to operate that building. And to get, people in to do the cleaning and so on and so forth, and run the programs to have it shut down again is very awkward. And we're kind of all in the same boat. You have to make sure that it's worthwhile to open.
We have to make sure it's worthwhile to open. We also, like Halton is possibly moving to Orange within the next 2 weeks, which will change things again. But the key with Roy is that if we sort of jerk him around too much, we might not have him at all. And then when we need him, we are in trouble. So, as I say,
Yeah, it's a balance.
we sort of feel we'd like to keep him 2 days a week, like just so he has some sort of normalcy, but we're watching it week by week. I'm checking with Jeannie. So any more questions? Okay, so shall we vote on that? Actually, technically, you don't approve financial statements, you just accept them. I mean, there's nothing to approve, they are reality.
Yeah,
They have happened. But
yeah.
we'll do the technical vote anyway. We see lots of hands going up. Can you, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it is, yes, it's passed, it's carried. Okay, then Darren, onward.
Do you want me to make the motion on the 10%
Yes,
contribution?
yes.
Sorry, forgive my ignorance. What's the name of the organization? Like, is it?
Well, the 10% of envelope, it's the motion
It's
that.
M&S, right?
Yes. Mission and service.
Yeah. So just wanted to make a motion that, I guess we've been giving 10% of our offering income to M&S the last number of years, and just want to make a motion to sort of extend that arrangement for 2021.
Plus 10% of loose offerings, plus the Lenten offering 100%,
Right,
right?
100% of luncheon, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff
Thank you.
Paparet, I second that emotion.
Who seconded that?
Yeah.
Jeff,
Okay. Any discussion, question about that? Okay, all in favor? Oh, Pat? No, all in favor?
Okay, yep.
Enough hands raised?
You know what, Judy, you may want to say all those opposed. That way other people have a chance. If they want to oppose, they can oppose it.
All right. All those opposed to this motion, raise your hand. I can't see the hand.
Yeah, I see them. Yeah, okay, there's just a couple.
Okay, the motion passes. It's carried, thank you. Now on to the budget, Darren.
Okay, thank you. So for the budget, it was kind of challenging actually coming up with a budget for this year, just because there's so much uncertainty. We weren't sure when the church was going to reopen. I actually prepared two budgets. There's an unofficial one under the assumption that there's no church reopening at all. And so I felt that, we needed to be prepared in that circumstance where we don't reopen, what's the impact to the church? And I think the operating deficit under that circumstance was about close to $70,000. The official sort of budget that we're looking to approve today is under the assumption that we would reopen in June. So we'd reopen in June with this gradual sort of like buildup of a return to normal in terms of like offering and sort of rental income and that type of thing. So with the June reopening, you can see below in the very last line of the table, we have a net operating loss of $39,000, so down from the 61 for this year. And so the components of that is, if you look at the total income first, we're sort of budgeting offerings to sort of go up 2%, and that's mostly per offering. It might be a bit aggressive, but I think it's not necessarily like unachievable. It's not aspirational. I think it's doable. So, so the 2% is what we have for offerings growth. Rental income it's up significantly from 2020, but it's still about almost half of what it normally is. So if we're assuming a June return to the church, I think that sort of 68 to 70 sort of makes sense from a run rate perspective. And then for other income, we're expecting actually this one-time bequest, as well as some others, the vacation Bible school camp returning and that type of thing. So that's making up that sort of other income increase there. So you factor all that in, and we're budgeting an income of $327,000 for this year. Salaries, it's up 6%. So the 2.2% that Pat had previously mentioned has been baked into this 279. The current choir director is making a bit more than the previous one, so that's actually accounting for a bit more as well. And then we made the treasurer role that Grace is performing a paid role, just because we didn't want to sort of have things, given everything that was happening with COVID, it was really important to sort of make sure that things weren't falling through the cracks. Not that they were before, it's just there's so many sort of moving parts this year. And so we felt it was important to sort of make that a paid role. I think if there's actually opportunity in terms of like having our expenses come in favorable to budget, it's actually on salaries. Like I think I'm being pretty conservative in this number. I don't think we'll hit 279, but to be honest, it's kind of a buffer that I've baked into the budget. And then building and ops and then administration together, they kind of offset and they're basically flat year over year. And then other is decreasing. We actually don't sort of incorporate charitable donations into our budgets. And so that's why the other income expense line, the other expense line is sort of down year over year. So all that said, our expenses before the wage subsidy, we're expecting to be like slightly down compared to 2020. When you factor in the wage subsidy, obviously that subsidy isn't going to be as large as it was in 2020. And so we're expecting to go down from 50 to 15. So that makes our expenses actually look like they're growing 9%, but it's a bit misleading because of the wage subsidy impact. So that's in a nutshell around what's driving this budgeted operating loss of 39,000. I would say that continuing with deficits isn't sustainable over the medium to longer term, and so we need to get back to a place where we're getting close to sort of balancing the budget. And so that's sort of one of the focuses we'll be having for next year is, how do we get back? What are the things we need to do to sort of get back to a balanced budget? But I think this is a small step in the right direction, but we're still in the red. So maybe Judy, I guess I should make a motion to.
You make a motion, yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 budget of a deficit of 39,000, and I'll open up to questions.
We have a seconder.
Judy Devaney, I second the motion.
Thank you, Judy. Now we open up for discussion, questions.
Ron Shermitt's hand is up first.
Yes, I'd like to get some information on our operating account, how we're doing in terms of, I guess, cash flow, you might say, that we use to fund our normal operations, cash in the bank and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's the balance sheet. So basically, the bequest that we got from the McKay estate has basically covered our operating losses from this year and this coming year. But we could sort of choose as council to sort of determine how we deploy those funds. Maybe we use it for something else. But so in terms of money in the bank, we've sort of invested that McKay bequest in GIC, so it's pretty, it's in a sort of fixed income account, and we can sort of pull that out whenever we need to. So I think with that, I think we're okay from a sort of cash and operating perspective. Obviously, if the deficits continue to sort of be at this magnitude for an extended period of time, we'll have to sort of draw down on those sort of GICs to help fund our deficits. But I can send you the balance sheet offline, Ron, and
it's
I think
also
actually included it was in the pre-mail as well.
Yeah, and it's on the website.
Yeah.
I'll review that then there. Thanks, Darren.
Frank O'Byrne has his hand up. Unmute yourself, Frank.
Oh, the odd thing, I was raising my hand in order to vote because I'm in favor of this, but I just want to very briefly, because I don't know if anyone was here beforehand, this presentation and this treasurer has done an amazing, treasurer and chair of finance has done an amazing job focusing us on the important things rather than the distracting minutia. And years ago, I was doing that job, and I've never done anywhere near as well as these people do. So Darren, thank you very much. Excellent job. You clarified things to the degree that I was hoping people could, and you did it. So thanks again.
Thanks for the kind words, Frank. Appreciate it.
Any more questions? Any more comments? Nothing? Okay, then are there any opposed to this budget? If so, raise your hand. I would say the motion carries. And thank you, Darren. Lots of work to put that together, I know.
No problem, you're welcome. Do you mind if I just take like 2 minutes just to go through sort of like areas of focus?
Of course.
So just building on sort of 2021 budget, you know, the June reopening may not happen. And so if that doesn't happen, as a council, we'll just need to sort of really focus on making some tough decisions like we did last year around like other expenses that we can pause or reduce to sort of help mitigate the impact of the closure. So, you know, that's going to be a key area of focus for us for this year. In terms of like just our GIC investments today, like they're pretty sort of low risk. And so I think there could be ways where we can sort of take on a little bit more risk, but generate a higher return for the church. And so it's something that we were sort of talking about before COVID struck. So, you know, as things normalize, we can maybe revisit that. And so it's something that, you know, I'll be sort of bringing back to council in the coming months. We sort of put the, you know, how to deploy the McKay endowment on pause just because things were so in flux with COVID. So right now it's in a fixed GIC where we can withdraw it at any time without penalty. But, you know, what do we do with that money long term? Do we, to Ron's point, do we use that to fund our operating deficits? Do we use it for something else? Those will be options that we'll be sharing at council. I think we need to sort of guide the church towards a balanced budget, as I mentioned, into 2022 and beyond. And then, you know, what's the sort of medium-term outlook for the church, like in 3 to 5 years' time? You know, I think we need to sort of have that long-term lens so that we can identify what the opportunities and risks are, so that we can sort of plan ahead and maybe position ourselves for a good, you know, balanced budget approach, you know, in 3 to 5 years. So those are the areas of focus for finance this coming year. And just wanted to close by saying a big thanks to Grace and Judy for helping me the last year. It's been challenging with, I've had a new job and, you know, lots of family commitments. And so haven't been able to sort of devote the time I needed to sort of do this job properly, I feel. And so Judy and Grace have really, you know, stepped in and helped fill the gap there. And so couldn't have been able to do it without the two of you. So thanks very much. That's it for me.
Just also to mention, Darren, that we are in the process of having a full audit of the books done. The church recommends this be done every 5 years. We have not done it for 7. And we felt we can't keep deferring it forever. So it should be, we should have a report on that in mid to late April, I think. So that's for information.
Thanks for the reminder. That's right.
Yeah. So thank you for all of that. We have one more motion. Catherine. There she is.
Oh,
you have to
trying to unmute here.
Yeah.
Okay, so my motion, I make a motion to allocate the anniversary offering for 2021 to Kerr Street Ministries.
Have we got a seconder for that motion?
Yeah, Grace Chung, I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments, discussion about that motion? Any opposed to this motion? And the motion is carried, and thank you. Does anyone have any new business, anything else to say, anything else to talk about?
I just want to really quickly mention before we end that I know that Judy is ending her term as chair after this meeting, and Kent is taking on. And I'm sure if anyone else is going to do this, I apologize, but I just want to say that I'm called to recognize the incredible amount of work that Judy has been doing over the past couple of years. I can try to list everything, but I just think the rounds of applause you're saying, Judy, is enough. You have to know that trying to lead this church through this pandemic, you are remarkable and have been the face. And we love you. We think you are incredible. And Ken had some amazing shoes to fill, and he can only disappoint us. So you're gonna be okay. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I am saying that you know that we're going to miss your guidance and wisdom, and we'll have to lean on you a little bit here or there. So just know that we do love and appreciate you.
Well, that is very kind. Thank you so much, Jeff. You make me cry just a little bit.
That
But I
was the
know
bet.
that
The over under on having you cry before 1 o'clock. What's the bet? So no, I'm kidding.
Anyway, I'm handing it over to Kent in good faith. He's going to just take on with no troubles. And I'm just changing my phone numbers. Getting a new email, no problem. No.
I'm pretty sure Ken knows where you live.
Still around. Anyway. Yes, so
I
now-
heard a groan from the other end, on the other end of our house there, Judy. Candy gave a groan from the other end of our house about your email changing or your phone number changing.
Don't change anything.
Don't change anything. No, still, and people know where I live and everything. It's going to be hard. Yeah.
Take some well-deserved time
Anyway.
off, Judy, but I know you'll be around if we need you.
I am certainly around, yeah. And I will still answer the phone. So there you go.
I would like to just give a shout out to everyone who's kept the finances running, like signing the checks, making the deposits of the offerings that do come in. Thank you very much for all your help doing that.
You're very welcome, and thank you to you for also doing it. If Jeannie were here, we would be raising a huge hand for her. She quietly in the background does a tremendous amount of work.
She does.
That doesn't get noticed a lot. It's like she's not just sitting there in her office. And if it's 11 at night, she's still answering emails, to which her husband says, "Is that a church email that you are answering at 11 at night?" Like, really? But she's very responsible, and she worries about us all the time, as we all do. Anyway, we're very lucky all around with all of the people who have helped all year long and all these many years. So a big thank you for everybody. So with that, we have no new business, I think. We will close the meeting and a closing benediction. I can find Deborah again. Oh, there
Yeah,
she
so
is.
I'll just offer the words that I offered at the end of the minister's message that you heard during worship. May God continue to guide our footsteps. May we continue to follow in the way of Christ. And may the Spirit fill us and surround us always. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And thank you all for attending.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you all. It's now practically 20 degrees, so sign off and get out there and enjoy this beautiful weather. That's our next step. Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you.